what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. It's always good to double check that kind of thing. Usually you can, but I always want to double check. So, how's it going today? We're going to talk about just some general affiliate marketing topics. If you have any questions, let me know. The title for today is Multi Profit Site. That's my course that's out there. And basically, it's open for enrollment this week. So there hopefully should be a link in the show notes here. Yes, there sure is. I did manage to put a link in there, so that's great. And you can enroll this week. You can check out the details. If people have questions about it, feel free to ask. And a couple other things before we get into the meat of it today. Ezoic has their publisher award ceremony on the 18th and 19th. You can follow the link in the description here to follow along. And Ezoic is a sponsor of these live streams, so thanks to them. You can check out their tool Leap that helps your site load faster. It helps you get green for the core web vitals, and it's a free product if you monetize with Ezoic. And the good news is that you can join Ezoic with no page view minimum. So even if you just started your site, you can go ahead and start working within Ezoic and get access to tools like Leap or others. And the other sponsor is Otis Global, your source for aged premium domains. And I'll talk a little bit more about them coming up. We have Masher on. What's going on, Masher? And Zach, what's happening? Marcus as well. Dan and Michael as well. So good to see the crew here. I didn't have any specific topics to cover, but if you have questions, you can let me know. You can ask questions about the course. I will tell stories otherwise. And I have many stories, many stories to tell. One thing I was thinking about the other day is my podcast, right? So I have 2 episodes per week that I typically publish. Not typically, I've published 2 episodes per week since 2019. And I started to publish an additional shorter episode, sometimes on Friday or Saturday, just if I have something else to talk about, some, random thoughts. So one of the ones that I, mentioned recently was, oh man, I totally lost my train of thought. Well, there's some random topics mixed in there, but occasionally there will be just sort of shorter questions that people have. Sometimes I get ideas from, actually, I think maybe Dan or Zach, I can't remember which one of you guys had a specific question. I was like, oh, that would be a great one to do like an episode on, just kind of focus on the nuance of that. But if you dig, those sort of topics, whether they're success stories or broader topics, sometimes educational, sometimes just random stories that I tell, you can check out the podcast, The Doug Show. Oh, Manzoor's on, and Gaz, and then we have Manzoor. Okay, great question, and it ties in to Otis. So your question is, do I recommend building a site on an expired domain? Not necessarily expired in the vocabulary that people are tending to use, partially because of companies like Odys or similar usage for domains with backlinks is just an aged or premium domain. I'm not 100% sure if I love just, trying to move in that direction. So sometimes they're expired. Best case scenario is the site did not expire and the site just, stopped being used, basically. So in the case of an expired domain, generally, I would say if it's your first, okay, I'll give a couple scenarios, but generally, if you used an expired domain and it has no spam history, no issues, it's a clean, good domain, and it's in the niche that you're building your site in that topic area, typically it will pay off and you will maybe shorten the sandbox, and maybe when you get out of the sandbox, you'll grow a little bit faster. So it's worth taking a look at. The cautionary tale that I have told for years is, I mean, I tried to build on some expired domains in the past. It was a long time ago. So these were actually domains that ended up getting spammed, and I was trying to use them still. And I also used other gray hat techniques, which proved to get the sites penalized. So my data point is not very good. However, I did hear from people that would build on an expired domain that they thought was clean, and they found out later that it wasn't. Or sometimes there's just random instances where it doesn't seem to work out. Now, the person may have made mistakes. This is all anecdotal, not based on any scientific study or anything like that. So essentially, these cases where it didn't work out that well, it was kind of sad. So someone would get the expired domain, they would build on it, they would publish content for a long time, and it would never take off. It would not get any traffic, and there was clearly something wrong. So I I think that is possible. However, if you get a good domain, or if you build on a site that already has, or that never expired, if you generally just acquire a blog and then start publishing more content, like that's a much better route. So your question, Manzor, do I recommend building on an expired domain? If you know what you're doing, yes. If it's your first time working on a niche site, I maybe would caution you and make sure you're getting it from a very good source, or you have very high confidence that this domain was never used in a spammy way. All right. Chris is on. What's going on? And Annis. All right. Michael says, have I focused any of my time building, growing sites from scratch versus acquiring and flipping sites? Yeah. So I've only purchased maybe like 2 sites ever, and the rest I've built from scratch. So I essentially focus almost all my time building from scratch. That's where I came up. I started by building my own site. So I'm pretty good at starting things like that. And for the done for you sites, I really don't recommend generally at all. I know I'm an affiliate for some of them because people just they can't help themselves. They want to get a done for you site. For someone like me, or if you've built a site before, you will probably see that the amount that it costs to build one of those sites, if you're competent at hiring some writers, is very low. It depends on how much content's on there. You could get a site with a lot of content. Then, of course, there's more value behind it. But generally, if you're able to do the basic mechanics of setting up a site, finding a handful of keywords, and having some writers work on it, you can do it for much cheaper. The premium that is charged for done for you sites is a wonderful business model for people. As far as acquiring sites and flipping, it's a great way if you have the capital to just, jump in. I would be hesitant to recommend that someone buy like a very big site before they kind of know the mechanics. There's value in knowing how to set up a site and doing some of the basic things versus like if you bought a site that was doing really well, making say 10K per month or something, you maybe would end up in a situation where you don't know how to run it because you're too new, you're too green. Now, when you buy a site like that, you could have a basic like transition situation where you can ask questions and be trained, but you won't have the intuition that someone with more experience has. All right. Dan says, I want to say that I've been getting into Haro over the past few weeks, and after getting trained by someone who has been wildly successful. In just 1 week, you were able to get links from monster sites. Awesome, Dan. I would love to hear more. Shoot me an email if you want to talk about it a little bit. I covered Haro, a few times in previous episodes, and people really, they enjoyed it. And I have a course on Haro, and it is, I mean, it's a great way to get big links. And sometimes it depends on your niche and how established your site is, how authoritative it would look. So just in general, but it is really effective to get awesome links. All right, Chris asked a question. Hi, Doug. Network is still just one link. Will Google note that it's 10 different retailers? I don't know the context of what you're asking. Chris, could you add more? I could have missed a message in there. Sorry about that. All right, Michael says you've been doing this for years, but you've never tapped into Haro. It's pretty cool that you have success. Nice. And Dan mentions that it's important to know how to respond to journalists and formatting the email. Okay. And Gaz says, what are Haro links? Oh man, I can't believe you haven't heard of Haro, Gaz. So basically, it's help a reporter out, and journalists will put out a request so that they can have a source and a reference for, and some usually a quote for whatever it is that they're trying to do in their story. And a lot of times they are, big news outlets, not always, but sometimes they're big news outlets. So you could end up with a link from like CNN or CNBC or Fox or whatever, like a huge network like that. Sometimes it's something smaller like Entrepreneur or something, more niche relevant. And sometimes, they're just bigger sites in the space. So yeah, it's a good route. All right. Jason, what's going on? Good to see you. And Chris, you're going to have to type it again. I don't know. I don't see what you're asking about. Okay. So Chris says using one network gives us the same URL with different IDs, even for 10 different shops. Will Google know that we link to 10 retailers or just see one link? I don't know what network you're talking about. Using one network gives us the same URL with different IDs for 10 shops. Will Google know that we link to 10 retailers or just see one link? I don't know. My hunch is probably one link. I am not sure the context of what you're asking about, really. I have no idea. Sorry. Unsure on that one. So this past weekend, we went out to, it's a state park here in the Denver area. It's called Bar Lake. So if people are in the general area, you can, drive over there. But it's a place where bald eagles winter. A lot of birds migrate to that lake and lakes around here. So bald eagles like winter there. And we went a couple years ago after we heard about it, and we saw like 70 bald eagles. It was crazy, 70 of them. And some of them were pretty far away, like maybe up to half a mile or a mile away across the lake. Some of them were just on the lake, on the frozen water. There were certain areas that water was showing, but a lot of the lake was iced over. So there were a bunch of eagles on the ice, ducks, geese all over the place. And when when we went this past weekend, for whatever reason, there weren't very many. There were like 10 or 15, which is, it's kind of funny. We saw like 10 or 15 bald eagles, but it was kind of a disappointment because we're used to seeing so many more. The other thing is almost all of the eagles were pretty far away. So we just saw like a couple of them up close, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, where I grew up in the Atlanta area, there were no bald eagles that I knew of. Now thinking about it, I bet there were a couple over maybe in like the Lake Lanier area or Lake Allatoona, in the water zones, there's probably some bald eagles out there. But generally, I can't even remember the first time I saw an eagle as a kid. I think I may have been like 18 or 20 before I saw a bald eagle in the wild. Okay, so Chris is trying to rephrase his question. Holy shit. Okay, what the fuck are we trying to ask here? Using one affiliate network gives us the same URL with different IDs, even for 10 shops. Will Google know that we're linking to 10 retailers or just see one? And Dan follows up and says, are you referring to Google liking more than one option for users to click on? Like instead of using just a link to Amazon, you'll have more links to other shops. Are you saying it's bad to have a ton of affiliate links? Exactly. Okay. So Chris further says using a network like Awin, for example, it gives the same URL with different IDs directing to different retailers. I don't know the answer to that. This is a very deep question, and I think only Google knows the answer to that. I would imagine that Google could distinguish and understand that they are different shops and you're trying to give the user more options. I don't know if they're going to that length. And I like you're thinking so detailed, but I'm not sure optimizing around that is the best thing to do. It could be, but from where I sit, I'm thinking, does Google know? I don't know. I don't feel like Google's like going out of their way to try to figure that out, but I don't know what they're doing. So I don't think anyone knows what Google's doing exactly. I would be, I would think, and I think this is what Dan is getting at, I would think you potentially could overdo it and put too many affiliate links in there. But as Dan is saying, you have pages with 30 affiliate links and they rank fine. And it's 30 links to Amazon, and that seems to be fine, is what Dan is saying. And Chris is saying you were thinking of the Google updates, asking us to include more retailers. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. I mean, if you can give it another option, like 2 options, that's probably enough, just in general. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't think anyone does. But we could speculate, of course, but I don't think anyone knows the answer for sure. All right. Ryan says, hi, Doug. In the Google Search Console, there are no the number of impressions haven't decreased much, but the number of clicks has fallen off a cliff. My rankings haven't dropped. So you're trying to understand why this may be. So your rankings haven't dropped, your impressions are steady, but people aren't clicking on it. I am not sure. If anyone has ideas, feel free to type in the chat. I would potentially look over on Google Analytics and see like the actual traffic to pages, the sources of the traffic. I mean, we are talking organic here, but it might give you some other insight that you haven't noticed. But when you're checking, did you also look at the click-through rate? So based on the information that you've said, the impressions are steady, the number of clicks have fallen, the rankings are steady. So your click-through rate should have fallen. I would look at, Ryan, I would check out maybe, is there any seasonality? Is there a reason why people were clicking on it before and they're not now? Maybe take a look at the SERPs and see if there's something that changed in the SERPs. Maybe there's some snippets that weren't there before. Maybe some of your competitors have changed their title to be more, clickable, more enticing. That could be a reason. And it, with a search console, it does take a little time for, maybe that to catch up, but that would, potentially drop your rankings, but it could be a little bit delayed as Google is adjusting. All right. And as we're going through, great questions. All right. Michael says there's plenty of examples around the web where the best of roundups with various affiliate links to different networks and programs. I don't think it impedes on ranking signals at all. Justin says, have I ever created a Google My Business page for a site? I think like once. They allow for online only businesses now, so you don't need a physical address like a few years back. I haven't in recent times, but some people would swear by it. I know when the Google My Business pages were around, or when they were becoming more popular, people were, trying to set them up and seeing if it would make a big difference. I have some matcha green tea today, mixing it up, I was like, I want something else to drink, but I probably shouldn't drink too much more caffeine. All right. And Zach also says, I wouldn't think that 10 shops within Amazon would count as giving customers a choice. Yeah, I think that's probably true. Oh, Michael says this. It's possible that Google results have moved video roles or other examples to the top of the results, and that can cause CTR, click-through rate, to drop dramatically. Yeah, so I would look at the click-through rate, take a look at the SERPs. Ryan does say that it's seasonal, so that could be something. Yep. Oh, and Jason mentions that Google is rewriting the descriptions and the titles these days, and their experiments might reduce your click-through rate. Good point. Oh, Ariel's on. Good to see you. All right. And if you haven't hit the thumbs up and you have a free thumb, it'd be great if you hit the thumbs up. So one thing I was thinking about earlier as well is my other podcast. So I have a podcast called Mile High Fi, and we just published an interview over on the YouTube channel. Since people are watching video, I'll just talk about YouTube. And I'm hoping it'll do pretty well. So we interviewed a guy named J.L. Collins who wrote a book called A Simple Path to Wealth. And then he has a new book called, shoot, I forget the name of it. Do I have it right up here? The other book is called How I Lost Money in Real Estate Before It Was Fashionable, and that's a brand new book. Now the cool thing is, and I've talked about like my other interest in personal finance and financial independence, but I live in this area. Thanks everyone for hitting the thumbs up. Wow, that worked good. I live in Longmont, and there's a lot. It's kind of a hub. There's a lot of financially independent people and sort of well-known bloggers or podcasters or other people that are well-known in the space that live in town here. One of them is Mr. Money Mustache, and he has a co-working space, and my podcast partner is a co-owner there. So I'm able to basically like take advantage of the fact that it's kind of a hub around here. So I recorded video and audio for this like live event that I think like 50 or 60 people came to, and there was a wait list of like 20 or 30. So that episode just went live. And one interesting thing is a couple other well-known people were in the audience. So it was kind of a Q&A session. So those people were in the audience. And there's a point to this, by the way. Hopefully you'll be able to draw a point. The well-known people in the audience also have following. Some of them are podcasters, some of them have books, some of them have other things that they work on, but they're well-known and they have a following. So I published the episode this morning, both on the podcast directory as podcast players and on YouTube. And then I reached out to the people that asked the questions and said, hey, like, you're in the video, you're in there. Here's the couple spots. Please share it around. Like, we're trying to get some interaction. Tell your people to leave comments. I'm hoping they will actually do it. I think they will. I mean, it's people that we're friendly with, and the thing is, they are alongside JL Collins, pretty famous dude, Mr. Money Mustache. So there's no reason that they wouldn't want to share it like as much as possible. So the reason why it's relevant is when we're talking about networking and sharing and how can you get a link from somewhere. If you can figure out a way to help people out and network and just kind of have a warm communication line, sometimes these opportunities will come up. And if you could put together a situation where, gosh, those people that ask the questions that have followings, they really wanted to ask questions so they could be in the same, they could be in the same stage, in the same video with JL Collins and Mr. Money Mustache, for example. So they're going to want to share it. I'm pretty sure. Not 100%. I mean, it's a good video too. It was entertaining, but you could take those kind of ideas and move forward. Take those ideas and go to a different medium. Take it to a different platform. If the blogging space is really crowded and you try to reach out and people don't respond back, and when you're doing your outreach, maybe go to YouTube influencers and Instagram influencers or TikTok or whatever and feature them. They may not have a blog. You may not get a link from them directly, but you could build a relationship and then get send traffic your way, which is good. They also know people. They also know each other, and they might be able to get you an introduction to people that do have blogs that were ignoring your emails. For example, Carl and I just interviewed someone with one of the biggest personal finance, financial independence podcast out there. Very, very big brand. And we interviewed her. I texted her. I was able to meet her at a live event, and I just texted her and said, hey, do you want to be on our show? Well, previously, right, if I just emailed her, she would never even get the email. She would just say, no, I don't know who you are. She wouldn't even reply back. Like, that's how, influential the person is. She wouldn't even reply back. But since we were able to meet in person and I got a warm introduction through other people that I know, I was able to, be friends with her. And like I said, literally just shoot a text over and say, hey, do you want to be on our show in a couple weeks, and hook it up. I mean, it's simple. And of course, I didn't try to meet this person to angle for anything. We're just hanging out, we're just hanging out in the lobby and met. So, okay. So as we're blasting through here, thanks everyone for hitting the thumbs up. Really appreciate that. Chris says, do I add new posts to social channels? And if doing so, do you see any improvements? So I typically don't do that. I did in the past. I don't think there is generally any benefit to do that unless you actually have a social following and can send people. So to the point before, right? If I make friends with someone who has a big Instagram following and they can share something on their story that could actually drive traffic to wherever I want it to go, that would be very good. And that, sharing on social might not impact the rankings directly, but I have a strong feeling that if that social link pushes traffic, especially over the long term, which could be possible depending on, the format and the way that it is shared, I think that could indirectly help your rankings. David, what's going on? Thanks for hopping on here. Jason saw the JL interview and Carl was a great MC. Yeah, he did a good job, and I was torn on whether or not I wanted to like co-host as well, but I am the AV specialist, so I was like, I don't want to have to think about recording and talking at the same time. But yeah, Carl does a great job. And I mean, he's part owner there at the co-working space. So it makes sense for him to drive and run the show. He also knows JL pretty well and has known him for years. Not that that is a prerequisite, but it certainly helps with the rapport. And JL is very, I mean, we pitched the idea to run the live event and he was like, sure, let's, I mean, he's promoting a book, but he was like, yeah, let's do it. He does love to, talk to people and connect. And he said that much. And Jason, thanks for watching the video, of course. My thoughts on a YouTube channel for reviews instead of a niche site. I think if you like video, if you like the video format, I think it's a great option. As far as like how soon you can get traction, I think there's a chance if you're good on video or have, some skills in the video area, you potentially could get traffic faster. The interesting part is they work really well hand in hand. And if you're able to, get some traction on the YouTube side, I mean, as someone who has a blog, a YouTube channel, and a podcast, like all of the mediums like can work really well together. But yeah, I would say if you like the video format, aim for that. There's no reason, not to. There is a different algorithm you have to think about. I mean, keyword research can be important, but there are a few other factors that you have to think about. In some ways, the SEO for YouTube is simpler. In some ways, it is just simpler and a little bit more basic. It's kind of interesting. Oh, Ben says, you want to say, thank you, Doug. The video content inspired you to start an affiliate website, and now there's your main source for living. That's amazing. Can you please shoot me an email? Would love to have you on the show and interview you. That's a perfect one. All right. Bogdan says, I have a problem. Recently, I did something wrong on my website and wanted to back up an older version of my site. You have 40 posts on the site and 2,500 page views a month. When I did a backup, WordPress isn't the same. I have problems. My classic editor isn't the same as it used to be. Images are deleted and much more. Can I somehow restore the whole website but keep the content? If anyone has ideas, let Bogdan know. I have no idea. I understand, what you're talking about, but I don't know. Okay, so you want to restore to an older version. Oh, so here's the thing. If you didn't make a backup before, I don't know how you're going to get it. Most hosting companies will have like some kind of daily backup usually included. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. So check with your hosting company. Number one tip, right? If you have a question like this, go to your hosting company. I don't fucking know. Like I don't know how to fix your site. So, but I guess I did help because I won't be that generous. I did say that there's a strong chance that your hosting company does have a backup, but people, you should pay some service. I use Managed WP. They don't have an affiliate program. I don't care. I have no allegiance to them at all. No affiliation, nothing other than I'm a customer. It costs like $1.80 per month to have offsite backups on a daily basis. They also have some other tools in there, but basically you're able to back up offsite. You want to be off of your server. The backups on your server are not very helpful if something really goes wrong. So you want to have offsite backups. Creative Ideas says, my site is earning $250 per month. How much can I make if I sell it on Flippa? There's a lot of factors. It depends on a number of things that you may or may not have done. But I would say in general, you can multiply that monthly profit. So you're saying the earnings, that's the top line gross revenue, is $250 per month, but you do need to consider any of the expenses. So just keep that in mind. So take your profit and multiply it by somewhere between 25 and 40 or so, and that'll give you the rough estimate. Sometimes on Flippa, the prices will be a little bit lower or maybe a little bit higher. I think it probably depends on the criteria of your site, the amount of data that you're able to provide. But yeah, I would say something like that. Okay, I'm going to take a quick little break here to let my voice rest, and then I'll jump back with Ariel and her question. Oh, that's wrong. That's not what I meant to do. I need to grab the file here. Hold on, just bear with me, everybody. It's going to be awesome. You'll see. All right, so this is just a way for me to take a little break, and we'll hear a word from our sponsor. A word from Otis Global, the source for premium age domains. And today, the featured domain is alphanutrition.com. And this domain has been around for quite a long time. So it was founded way back. So it's 24 years old. And if you order something from Odys, you actually get a logo. So here's the logo for this particular domain. And like I said, it's been around for quite a while. We can have a look back over here on the Wayback Machine and see that it actually does look like a pretty old site. And one thing that really struck me right off the bat when I looked on the Wayback Machine is, this data all the way back, these captures all the way back in the year 2000. It's pretty ridiculous. And I grabbed this snapshot from 2017, which it's kind of amazing that the site looked like this in 2017, but it did, some legacy around, but it was around nutrition. So it says Alpha Online Medical Information e-commerce store. So kind of verbose as far as the title there, but my thought is it would be great to use for a nutrition or a supplement kind of site. It does say here Alpha Online is dedicated to helping people find solutions to medical problems. We're interested in clean air and water and so on. So there's a lot of information that you could put on there with that sort of idea in mind. But I mean, you really could focus on the medical area. Now, the big thing with these aged premium domains is they do have a lot of backlinks. So we'll take a look over on Ahrefs for alphanutrition.com. And you can see that the domain rating is 6, but it was higher in the past. And generally, let's see here. Yeah, it was a little bit higher in the past, up around 30 or so, as recent as 2015, 2016, that sort of time frame. But the thing is, those backlinks still exist, 239 referring domains. And if we take a look at the do follow referring domains, we can see there are some big hitters: bbc.co.uk, harvard.edu. We got Tripod, Angelfire. Those aren't super impressive, but there are many others that are, very high domain rating. I mean, all of these on the page that we're looking at here are 60 or higher. So pretty impressive as far as the backlinks pointing to the site. Again, if you order something over at Odys, you get a logo included. And I think this is a pretty decent price, depending on exactly what your market is. But at a little bit under $5,000, it has backlinks, and it has the history that potentially can shorten the sandbox for you. So if you do join Odys using my link, you can get $100 into your account. And if you spend anything there, I'm an affiliate, so I can get a little bit of a commission, which I greatly appreciate. And thanks again to Odys for sponsoring this show. All right, that was Odys there. So let's get back to the questions. And actually, before we do, just quick shout out for people that are just joining. So number one, thanks for the people that, or to the people that enrolled in the multi-profit site course, which is open for enrollment this week. It closes up on Friday, and there's actually a bonus available for people that enroll by in the next hour and 45 minutes or so. It's 3 p.m. Mountain Time is the deadline. I'll audit your site once you get it launched. I'll record a video, like a 30-minute video, go through, check out whatever you want me to check out. And there's, some other details about that, but there is a bonus. So if you do pick up the course today, I'll check out your site and do an audit. I think the value of, if you were to hire me to do a 30-minute audit, it would be, $250 or something like that. Probably more if you just hired me. But anyway, it's a good value. Enrollment's open till the end of the week, so have a look. All right, let's hit the questions here. Ariel says, with all the recent Google updates, is it still worth doing product reviews when you don't own the product? I think it's probably worth giving it a shot. So I would say yes, it is. I think, to your point, Ariel, with all the updates that are targeting product reviews or sites that are too heavy in the product review area, I think most of your content should be informational. And I interviewed someone in the last couple days, Mike from Below Average Blogger. That interview is coming out pretty soon. And he talked about publishing about 90% informational content initially. And then once the site is established, getting traffic to maybe lean towards more product reviews. But I think you can look, Ariel, and maybe make it a case-by-case basis where you look at the competition and who is ranking really well and kind of get a feel for whether or not it seems to actually be important to have the product and have custom images, unique images that you have taken yourself. And David comes in to save the day and says there's a plugin to recover pictures from the Wayback Machine. Cool. Michael mentions that selling on Flippa, you will want to have an established revenue baseline for 6 to 12 months to get the best value. Otherwise, your value will be diminished. And Michael says he's a buyer on Flippa. Cool. Dilshad says, should we work on more than one sub niche on the website? I think that is fine. You don't want to spread yourself too thin, but if it's, within the full umbrella of that category or topic area, then other, more specific products that fit within the branding of your site. Totally. Yeah. Oh, Ben asked for the offsite backup that I'm using. So it's manage WP. Pretty sure that's what it is. I'll double check really quick. But I have basically all my sites on there. So yeah, I have probably like 10 sites on there, something like that. I'm paying about $20 a month for all of them. Yeah, so managed WP. I think GoDaddy purchased them a while back, but it seems to function exactly the same. It's also because they back up the full entire site. I am not too afraid to go in and start editing the database and doing things like that. I'll just back up the site right before I start messing around with things that can shut down your whole site. Then I'll do global search and replaces. I'll just edit things like crazy on my site. And if I screw up, which I have before, there's a one button restore. and it will upload everything it'll upload everything via FTP and just restore the site to whichever backup that you want. Very useful. All right, and creative ideas has the site that's making some money, and he or she says, should I keep my site to make it reach 500 or 1,000 per month and then sell it? And basically, you do whatever you want. So if you want to get more for it in the future, then go for it. If you want the money right now, then of course sell it now. But I mean, you're in a spot where like basically anyone is sort of in that position. Once it starts earning money, you could sell it and get several months of earnings right up front, or you can keep working on it. There's some risk in, potentially holding on to it. Algorithm updates, competitors, maybe you have some other, portion that you're like, oh, I want to work on this. Like it may or may not work how you expect. So if you want to keep growing, then go for it. I would say, depending on your financial situation and if you need the money sooner than later, personally, I would probably keep it for a little bit longer. The amount that you'd be able to sell it for, while it's a, good amount of money, if you already have a site that's getting traffic that's earning, there's a strong chance that, putting more effort into that site will provide a potentially larger ROI on a sort of medium term, say probably like 1 to 3 years or something. Like putting more into that one site will probably pay off pretty well. Andreas says, am I planning on interviewing Shauna anytime soon? I hope so. I think I reached out to her sometime over the holidays, and I don't think we have anything set up, but it's always great to have Shauna on. And Andreas, if you have any specific questions, please shoot me an email, feedback@Doug.Show, and then I can ask those questions. So if you have any specific topics or anything, just let me know. Oh, David, sorry if I missed this question before. Have I thought about creating an SEO content pruning guide? I have thought about it, and I actually went through a pruning process. That's a good name. Pruning process masterclass or something. So I did that about a year ago. I deleted like half the content from Niche Site Project. So when I'll describe this. So if people are not familiar with an SEO content pruning guide, or really like a content audit, this is something that, you should probably do on an ongoing basis versus what a lot of people end up doing. That is to publish a lot of content over the course of several years, and then you end up with hundreds of posts on your site that, some of which you weren't even intending on trying to rank for a long period of time or anything. It's just you blogged about something and then you published it, and you weren't really thinking about SEO. So there were some case studies, I think starting in probably like 2016 or 17, where people audited their sites, and this is kind of a mini guide just off the top of my head. So you have all the content on your site, and then you go through every single URL. Some of them are going to be like old opt-in landing pages or something, which are irrelevant. Some of them are going to be posts that used to rank well and no longer rank well. Some are ranking well, and some are maybe in the need for some updates or something like that. So you have a few buckets of types of content. And some of the content you will just delete. And it turned out there was a lot of content on Niche Site Project that I should just delete. It never was written to rank. There was no keyword basis. It doesn't have like an intrinsic reason to be there, right? Like maybe there's some content on a site where it's not going to rank, no one's searching for it, but it's important information for your niche. It's an important guide to have. even if you're not going to rank for it, you want to have it just so that you have a complete set of information on your site. There's other content where, like I said, it used to rank, but it's not anymore. And maybe it's out of date. Maybe it's irrelevant. So you would have to make a judgment call on those. Either delete it if it's not relevant anymore, or go through, figure out where it needs to be updated, update the material, and hopefully it'll rank better. So the thing that I messed up on, David, was I deleted a bunch of content and I had a list of pages that I wanted to improve. And then I didn't do that. I didn't improve any of that content. I didn't have like a content plan to add more content that potentially could rank. I'm in the internet marketing space for this case study example that I'm mentioning, and it's fairly competitive. And when I looked at what I wanted to work on and like where I am now with my business, I was like, I don't know if I want to go and compete with people that are really intense and they have a team of writers writing for them, keyword research driven. They're getting links to it and they're pushing hard. And I looked at myself and I thought, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to hire a team of writers. I don't want to keep promoting, in this like 5 best WordPress plugins for image compression. I don't want to write those articles. I don't want to promote them. I really don't care that much. It's not a problem that I'm experiencing. And I'm just not interested in it. And yes, one could earn money from a lot of that, referral sales, showing ads, whatever, but I just wasn't interested in going that route. And I know that the other people, the competitors, they're throwing money into it. And I was like, I'm not really going to do that. So that said, I mean, there's still content that I could write that does make sense, that would bring in new traffic. But the biggest thing, David, is I didn't go back and improve the content that used to rank pretty well. So fast forward after 1 year and 2 SEO audits by Olga, which I published on the channel. Basically, I finally went back and I went to a specific post that used to bring in a lot of traffic and has steadily declined over the years. I mean, I think it used to get, a few hundred visitors per day. So I do know that it is a popular topic and it's one that I could rank for. So I have probably, I think it's about 3 weeks of data, but I could already see, I think the last time I looked, the organic traffic has increased by, I can't remember. I'll look in just a second. I think it could have been like 30%. So we're dealing with much smaller numbers, but it's enough where if you look on a graph, you're like, oh, that's the date that you improve the content. And now it's ranking better. The other part that I sort of started to work on was, getting traffic from other sources. And because I have this YouTube channel, I decided to do a couple teardown videos, which fits perfectly with the content and the topic and the things that people are interested in for that page. So I could publish a bunch of videos and maybe a couple people watch those videos per day. Let's say 10. Maybe 1 or 2 of those will go over to the page that I talk about. And over time, in aggregate, right now I just have 3 videos that I published, and I'm not sure if I'll have energy today, but I do have some time this week to do more of those teardown videos. The thought process being, if I can steadily drive some traffic over there, even if it's just a small number, I mean, we can see, let's say I was getting, 100 visitors per day. If I do 10 videos, and I'm just making up some numbers to move forward with this, but let's say a handful of people do go from the video, from each one of the videos over to the page. All of a sudden, maybe if I do, 20 of these videos, maybe that leads to a 20% increase on a daily basis to that specific page, which could be really interesting. Also, that page could link out to each one of the individual 20 videos. So there's a nice sort of reciprocal situation and relationship. So I'm not sure how it'll pan out. It's not something that I had, um, I guess, a lot of data points on. I did this in the past, and I'm not sure if that's why the post actually did well over the years. But as I've neglected it, it has dwindled in as far as traffic in a very like apparent way. I mean, I saw it happening in slow motion for a pretty long time. All right, we'll answer a few more questions here. I'm going to take a look at the analytics. Vikram says, do I have an affiliate course for beginners? Well, you showed up on the right day, man. Yeah, it's called Multi-Profit Site. There's a link in the description. You can learn all about it there. And yeah, it takes you start to finish. It goes very advanced just as you progress along the course, but it starts at choosing a niche. It starts at keyword research and builds on top of it and layers the complexity. So there's a lot of content there, but it is geared for beginners, and you can, learn about content, hiring a team, scaling, selling your site. There's information about email marketing and a few other pretty advanced topics. So it starts at the beginning and then gets advanced over time. And yeah, last couple questions here as my voice starts to go away. Yeah, let me just take a quick look at the organic traffic over here. Over on niche site projects. And it says, is it better to have social media in our affiliate websites, or will it slow down the speed and it's better to remove them? What do I choose? Can you be specific? Like, are you just talking about having like the links to your social media, for example, or are you talking about having like an embedded tweet or an embedded Instagram post or something like that? And generally, I would say you can look at it on a case by case basis. So if you're talking about embedding a specific post, if it's essential and critical for that piece of content, I think embedding it and it actually enriches that content, go ahead, put it in. I think it's worth the cost if it helps the reader, if it helps the visitor to your site. If you're talking about the little just links out to wherever your social media is, I would only put them there if it's something that you are actually active on. So occasionally I'll audit someone's site and they have, everything. They have YouTube, they have Pinterest, they have TikTok, Instagram, Google Plus, Twitter. They have things that they don't even use, things that hardly even exist, like Google Plus. So in that case, I would say only have the links to the social media that you actually use. Otherwise, it's just a waste. Just a waste of space there. Okay, and I'm taking a look. So the hard part, I'm looking at this Amazon affiliate examples page. So the tough part is I made the updates right around the middle of December. So we're smack dab in the middle of the retail season, vacation time, and other sort of unusual circumstances. When I look at the overall traffic to the page, not focusing on organic, overall traffic to the page roughly doubled from December 13th to the 10th. So it's 105% compared to the previous period. And if I look at only the source of the traffic or the medium, actually meant to grab a different, the traffic type. This should be good. So the organic traffic is up by 47%. So it's even higher. So the last couple days have actually been pretty good. So that is pretty amazing. So 47% direct traffic is up quite a bit. A lot of that is driven through emails, and referral traffic is up by 200%. A lot of that is driven through YouTube. So just overall, like, I improved the content on the site. I started promoting it and telling people about it that I have the ability to tell, and traffic is up quite a bit. So I'm hoping as time goes on, as I actually improve it more, it will pay off even more. All right. Sarvish Vesh says, am I facing indexing issues these days? No, not specifically. Do you have a new site? If you have a new site, a lot of times indexing will certainly be slower in the first 6 months or so when you're in the sandbox. A lot of times, once you get out of the sandbox or once you publish a lot of content. So I also interviewed a guy named Charlie, who, I think his channel is Passive Priority. I always forget it. So Charlie, he published a lot of content on his site. I don't think he has any issues with indexing because he's published so much and there's a lot of traffic on his site. So I think, if you have a brand new site, you could have some issues with indexing because you're in the sandbox. Google is kind of waiting to see what's going on. Now, Sarvesh, the other thing is you may be in a situation where your site has been crawled. A URL is crawled but not indexed. And I think I did I did a podcast on that. My Trello board's up on that monitor, so that's why I keep looking up there. I'm like, did I do a video on that? The podcast, The Doug Show, link in the description. I did a episode where I talked about indexing issues and being crawled or discovered but not indexed. Like, Google knows it's there and they're just not sure if they want to rank and index that specific URL. And the weird thing is sometimes pages will be indexed for a little while and then they fall off. And then some other pages that were indexed will fall off and they kind of just move around. And I reference a specific set of tweets that John Mueller posted around that. And he tries to give some context around it, but basically it looks like it's not indexed, but Google is saying, we're not sure if we're going to index that yet. All right. Oh, and Anna says, you're talking about social as far as the buttons. Sometimes it's animated. I mean, a light plugin or manual links. Okay. I would say, you could put the links in if you're active on that platform. That's the only time to put them in. Take them off if you're not active on the platform. It serves no purpose. I mean, is someone going to go follow it and then never see anything from you? So what's the point in that? I would aim for the non-animated version. I mean, you could do, manual links if you wanted to. You should be able to find a very lightweight link. The themes that I use typically have a spot where you could put in your URL for whatever social platform you want, and then it'll use a lightweight, hopefully, icon or link so that you don't have to fuss around or put another plugin to do that. So hopefully your theme will do it. The other alternative would be to just bury it in your footer. Bury it in the footer, and that would be a viable option. If you wanted to put it somewhere else up higher, that would potentially be okay. Again, I would only put it up higher on your page if it is a priority for you. So if you're like, hey, I want to actually build this Instagram following, then, be active on Instagram, and then you could potentially put that link up higher. But if it's a higher priority for you, then you could put it up higher there. There's no right answer. That's just I hate social media. So keep that in mind. All right. So last quick shout out for Multi-Profit Site. My course, it's open. There's a bonus available for about an hour and 20 more minutes. That is me auditing your site. And anyone that purchased prior to 3 p.m. Mountain Time, Tuesday, January 11th, will be able to get that. So, if you've already purchased, so thanks for the people that enrolled. I will hook you up with that. And there's a couple other bonuses, so you can follow the link in the description. Enrollment is open till Friday. The other thing is that thanks to Otis Global, the source for premium and age domains, and then for Ezoic as well. And David, what's happening? The indexing episode is 312. Thanks very much. And thanks to David for moderating from afar. All right, I think that's it for today. I'm going to jet, and everybody have a great week. Check out the podcast. If you like these topics, check out the Doug Show. And then if you want to know more about personal finance and financial independence, which is another passion of mine, that show is so much fun. I've been able to hook up with my co-host, Carl Jensen, he just knows a lot of people. So we have really awesome guests. In fact, coming up soon, the video that we published today, the podcast we published today, Mr. Money Mustache was on there for a minute. And then JL Collins is, a well-known financial writer. And he self-published his first book. I think it was 2016 or 17. I think, if I remember right, it was either 300 or 400,000 copies that he sold. Self-published. 300 or 400,000 copies. That would be absolutely amazing for a traditionally published book with full backing and promotion by the publisher, but he did it on his own. So anyway, JL's pretty awesome, and check out that show if you want to know more about